Hello, welcome to week 7 PAWS. This is our progress and weekly stats, and this is where we're going to celebrate the wins, the chaos, and at least one questionable decision. Yeah. So, consistency is a myth, cat logic is real, and progress still counts, even when it's messy. So, I am going to start this week with what happened throughout the last week. Normally I'll do this at the end of this video. You say, oh, this happened last week, this was going to happen, but this one has a full context as to why this video is going to seem a little sparse. So, this last week was a bit of a journey. If y'all saw the last week's videos, in probably every single one, my paws, my claws, my yarn, I was going, excuse me, allergies. Yeah. I'm still a little scratchy, by the way. So, and I was also stating with full declaration, Monday we're going to restart, we're going to get to go. That didn't happen. Why? Because it was either allergies, and then it turned into, I'm sick, or it was just, I'm sick the entire time, like, sick, like, yeah. So, Monday and Tuesday, unfortunately, hit kind of like a truck, and not just any truck. Who here has seen Maximum Overdrive? Does anybody know that Goblin face truck? Yeah, that one. And I'm pretty sure on Monday it found me, and it ran me over again, and again, and again. Zero fun, full body ache, chest full of ick, and the whole, why does my skeleton hurt package. Yeah, so I ended up calling out of work for both days, and I basically didn't leave my bed unless it was absolutely necessary. So yeah, so much for the Monday restart. It's okay. However, Wednesday I did feel better enough to function, to go back to work. So I dragged myself out of bed. Still wasn't feeling that great, but it was that ick where you could just like, I can still walk upright at least, right? So I ended up not doing any full exercises at all last week, but I hit my steps for the days I could stand that weren't the weekend. So basically, but yeah, Wednesday and Thursday what happened was basically this was my system. I worked, I took a nap, I went for my outside walks, I did my journaling, and I passed back out. That was Wednesday and Thursday after all that. And then Friday was the first day I didn't need a nap. Definitely feeling a lot better. My voice wasn't, I didn't feel like if you heard my voice during those days, it was the first day that actually sounded more like me. So I was actually able to do my pics and my pictures, my measurements on time, not on Saturday. I did on Friday for once. Still felt kind of off, so when I went outside to do my outside walks, I only did half of them. It's okay. Body's still recalibrating. But here's the silver lining. I hit my step goal on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So even sick mode, Blood Lily, still got those steps in. Alright. Anyway, now that the Maximum Overdrive Goblin truck has stopped using me as a speed bump, let's talk about what actually happened this week. The stuff that wasn't just me horizontal and regretting my life choices. Alright. So, as always, let's go over the weight. Let's see here. Now, what I did do was, because last week I'd actually gained 4 pounds, and I was like, I know where that came from. Yeah, well, we all know where that came from. So, this week I did a little bit different. I did what I lost from last week. So, what I lost from last week was 4 pounds, 4.6 pounds, which is good. So, what this means is that basically from the week before that, like I gained the 4 pounds. That means if I count the week before that and kind of skipped last week's fun, I lost 0.4 pounds. Not bad. I gained it, I lost it. Hey. So, I mean, granted, a lot of that loss was because I was sick as a dog and wasn't eating or anything. It was just, but, you know, it's still a thing. So, my total loss since I first actually recorded is 54.1 pounds. And my total loss since my potential start, that start that I'm sure I heard the doctors say the very first time I saw them back in March of 2025, is about 63 pounds, or 63.1 pounds. So this week we do have our Professor Calico blurbs back because I could actually get things set up because, I can actually pay attention. So from Professor Calico, she says, class, settle down. Lily has brought us quite the case study this week. So we're going to go over the week 6 situation. This is the week that we will not be speaking of it. So let's begin by acknowledging last week's numbers were chaotic. A gain from 232.3 up to 236.5, a whole 4-pound detour. But, as any good scientist knows, anomalous data points happen, especially when the subject announces we're starting on Monday and then proceeds to do absolutely nothing. So, we are, therefore, treating week 6 as a statistical outlier, a blip, a ghost, a week that simply did not exist. Now this week has narrative structure. And again, we went over the maximum overdrive, ran me over repeatedly. This is the only reasonable explanation for the symptoms. So, basically, going over each day, she wants to say that Saturday was a modest, lost 0.2. That's acceptable. Sunday, we lost 1.3. That's impressive. Monday, we lost 1.1. The Goblin truck was at least efficient. Tuesday, lost 3.6. And that was not weight loss. That was an exorcism. Wednesday, we lost 0.2, stabilizing. Thursday, we gained 1.8 pounds. And that's your body going, wait, what just happened? And then Friday, stayed the same, which is cool. So, this is a week called sick mode metabolic, I should not say they, metabolic plot twist. I can talk. Oh, I should go start. Okay. Ready for the cat? Yep. Okay, let's pause and then we'll keep going. Okay, now I think the cat's done. Who knows? Those two. It's Kitsune and Kiki. Kiki, the brother, is in the middle of chasing after her, so my still kissing and growling. Welcome to my house. But let's get back to Professor Calico anyways. From here, she wants to talk about the true progress. So, oh no, I'm sorry, we went over that. We lost the 0.4 pounds since 2 weeks ago, since we've gained. So that's still good. But now we want to talk about just from last week. So from last week's end, last week ended at that 236.5 to this week's end, which was 231.9. That again was a negative 4.6 pounds. And she says Lily does not restart this week. Her body simply dragged her along for the ride and still managed to drop nearly 5 pounds. Rest counts. I've been saying this. So the big picture. So from that amount I lost since first recorded, my first recorded point was 286, was again negative 54.1, and since the potential start, which I'm pretty sure I heard 295, where I started with the whole journey, it's a potential 63.1 pounds. These are not small numbers, these are rewrite your biology numbers. Her final judgment: despite illness, exhaustion, naps, goblin trucks, and a week that we have collectively agreed to erase from the timeline, Lily still showed up. She still walked when she could, still hit her step goal 3 days in a row, still did her measurements on time, and still ended the week lower than she began. Week 7 was chaotic, sickly, unexpectedly productive. Professor Calico approves. So yeah, I promise the rest of them will be shorter. But I was all excited. This week's actually done good. So next we're going to talk about the blood pressure. Let's see here. We got a weekly average in total of 107/69. Morning average is 123/78. Afternoon average 101/64. Evening average 95/65. Now I only tracked literally Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because Saturday and Sunday, if I remember, I'll do it. It'll happen some weekends. It won't a lot of them. And then Sunday and Monday, or not Sunday, Monday and Tuesday, I was sick. I didn't feel good. I was just like, this is the last thing on my mind. So that didn't happen. So literally just 3 days worth. But, like I said, meant to restart on Monday. Guess we restarted on Wednesday mostly. So from Professor Calico, She does want to state that when you're sick, especially when you have a history, like me, of high blood pressure and you take literally medication for it, you should be tracking to make sure that you're in a good range. However, when you are flattened by illness, you are unable to stand, you're sweating, you're dizzy, and you get barely conscious of your own name, who exactly is thinking, ah, yes, let me go fetch my cuff and take 3 readings today? No one. Absolutely no one. And that is why we do not shame ourselves for missing the data. We simply resume when we can, observe the patterns we do have, and note that the cardiovascular system behaved admirably once the Goblin truck level sickness passed. So, track when you can, rest when you must, and if you're too sick to move, the chart can wait. Now, let's review the actual data that we collected this week. So, of course, mornings were the highest, and it's a predictable result because, again, I still wake up in those panic modes. To be honest, so this week wasn't too bad. And the body's stress hormones basically are firing before the brain is even booted. By the afternoon, the system settles dramatically. We see readings in the low 100s and over the low 60s, which is a very calm recovery pattern. And the evenings, of course, with a steady assault, consistently in the mid-90s, and with a systolic, and the mid-60s diastolic. I really should practice how to say these things, shouldn't I? Anyway, this is what we call the What? But basically, simple terms, your body finally chilled out. Okay? So despite illness and some missed days and the Goblin truck chaos, the full week average landed a remarkably healthy 107/69. So it tells us 2 things. My medication is doing its job, and my cardiovascular system is sturdier than it gives itself credit for. So the data we do have paints a stable, recovering system. Missing days does not invalidate the trend. They simply reflect reality. Reality is, was sick, the chart could wait. Next, we'll talk about heart rate. We see here weekly average 96.6, morning average 90.3, afternoon average 104, evening average 95. Not too bad. That's a good thing. I believe under 100 is where you want to be, so afternoon's a little bit high, but it's okay. So, from Professor Calico, the mornings still show the classic panic wake-up pattern. It's a little elevated, but it's improving. Definitely improving from what we've seen the weeks before, I think, if I remember correctly. You tell me. Anyways, afternoons do hover around 104, which is perfectly reasonable for body in recovery mode. And evenings beautifully stable at 95. Sorry, going back from this. It does actually seem, even though my morning average, like those should be higher with the panic, but they actually kind of weren't. They were actually pretty low, which is, I think, a good thing. In those afternoons, a lot of times, just like, I do take my blood pressure after I do like a little bit of a walk kind of thing, so I don't know, maybe that affects them. But anyway, full week average is 97, which tells us the system is settling. The cardiovascular orchestra is tuning itself back to a normal tempo. Conclusion, progress counts even when the data is sparse. So again, I only got it for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And the heart doesn't need perfection, it just needs consistency and rest. Okay? Okay. Welcome to my house. Anyway, next we're going to go over my glucose. We have a weekly average of 108.4. I'll take it. I'm happy. Morning average was 106, afternoon was 114.7, and the evening was 104.7. From Professor Calico, she says again, despite several days of no readings, again I only got 3 days of readings, because the patient was sick, horizontal, and frankly not in the mood for finger stabbing. I don't wear a CGM, I knock things off really easily because I'm clumsy, so yeah. We still have a very clear pattern, which is good. Morning BAT values stayed beautifully stable around 106. Afternoons showed there was one high afternoon. It was due to a honey tea induced spike, which was what happens when you drink sugar immediately before testing. But tea was good for the throat. and evenings were calm and consistent, averaging 105. So a full week average of 108 is solidly within a healthy, predictable range for a recovering system. Conclusion: glucose behaves best when the patient is rested, hydrated, and not chugging honey tea, at least at test time. Okay. Yeah, it happens. So next we're going to talk about sleep. Now this one I was able to track all the days because I wore my Fitbit. I got a lot of sleep. So my weekly average, I actually got 7.19. Basically averages 7 hours, 19 minutes is my average, which for me is a lot. That's due to just naps, just a lot of naps, to be perfectly honest. So from Professor Calico, this week's sleep chart looks like a patchwork quilt. Because if you can actually see, I think we just have the basics, but if you see mine, it's just naps, 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 naps. So basically these, again, naps are stitched together with recovering marathons. Monday I got 11 hours, which was textbook rebound sleep. While Wednesday split sessions, so the body is trying to recalibrate. The weekly average is 7 hours and 19 minutes, and a sleep score, which I get from my Fitbit. I should do a better about sleep scores because I don't fully get them myself. Of 73 tells us the system is stabilizing. Sleep doesn't have to be perfect. It just happens. It just has to happen. 3 naps still counts as 1 victory. Okay. Steps. Believe it or not, I got a fair amount of steps in this week. Well, not this week. At least the days I could do steps, okay? My total steps for this week was 30,688. My average steps per day were 4,384. I honestly thought it was going to be lower because I had a bunch of days where I just, if I got up, it was because I had to. Alright. Anyway. Press Calico. Stretch your whiskers, look alive. This week's step chart is a tale of 2 realities. The early week, barely left the blanket era. And the midweek, suddenly I'm training for a 5K renaissance. So with 30,608 steps total and a daily average of 4,384, we're not chasing perfection, we're celebrating momentum. Some days are slow PAWS and some days are zoomies. So what matters is that the PAWS keep moving. My water intake, again, only had 3 days that I tracked. Most of the stuff was just 3 days, unless it was something yeah, I'm going to be honest. Most of these are just going to be looking at Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because those are the days that I could actually function. But for those 3 days, I got a total of 264 ounces, which is an average of 88 ounces a day. Now, this doesn't mean that I didn't drink Saturday through Tuesday. It just means I didn't track. And believe me, I drank a lot of water because with allergies, you want to drink a lot. You want to drink water. With being sick, you want to drink water. It helps your system. Okay, Professor Calico, she does say that I see the early week section of this chart looks like the Sahara because I tracked nothing. But let's be honest, our student was sick, exhausted, and still hydrating like a champ. Tracking didn't happen, but the water absolutely did. And of course, on the weekends, those are the lawless land where logging is optional and vibes are mandatory. Once Wednesday rolled around, though, it turned into a walking waterfall. With 264 ounces tracked from Wednesday to Friday, that's an average of 88 ounces a day, which is downright heroic. And of course, always remember, we only count finished bottles whenever I do track, so the real total is probably even higher. Keep sipping, keep shining, and don't make me bring out the giant novelty water bottle again. The one with the big one? Yeah, anyway, okay, sorry, that's what I got in my head. So next we're going to talk about those calorie deficits. Average deficit for the 3 whole days that I tracked was 600. Not bad. Professor Calico, when life gets chaotic and the data goes on vacation, we didn't track Tuesday's calories, so we can't tie Wednesday's weight into the intake, which is perfectly fine. What we can see is a classic sick week pattern. Several days of low appetite and high water gave that big loss of that 3.6 pounds. You see, little pictures show the actual whatever I tracked, just so you know. Which would happen on Tuesday, but by Wednesday, still drifting downward, and my body started to normalize. And then Thursday kind of bounced up that 1.8 pounds, which is usually with water, sodium, recovery, system refilling the tank. This week was all over the place, and that's okay. And then Friday, holding steady. Nothing happened. Tells me body stabilized, not that anything went wrong. Translation, the weight changes make perfect sense for a sick recovery week, and the calorie math only applies once you're actually eating normally again. Just true. We're going to talk about measurements real quick. We don't know what my real quick is, but anyways. Let's see here. Left arm did go down 0.5, a total since our baseline of 1. Right arm didn't budge. Total since baseline, it actually went up 1. Left thigh didn't budge, went down 2 since baseline. Right thigh went down an inch, and that's a total of down half an inch since the baseline. That's kind of fluctuate a little bit. My left calf went down 0.5, which is a total of 1.5. Exact same thing for the right calf, actually. My bust went down, well, actually went up 0.5 this week. That's still a total of 5.5 in total since baseline. Waist, same thing, went up 0.5 this week, a total of 4 since the baseline. And the hip went down 0.5 this week, which is a total of 5 inches down since the baseline. So that means the net change for this week was down 2 inches all around. And the total loss from baseline has been 20 inches, counting everything. So, week 7, again, recovery week. I dropped 2 inches in total this week, even with illness, hydration chaos, and the skipped week 6. I didn't, just let you know, those changes weren't actually from last week, they were from the week before, because I didn't track last week. I was just like, I'm tired, I didn't do it. So yeah. So the arms and calves trimmed down, the hips dipped half an inch, right thigh corrected itself after that last spike. The bust and the waist ticked up a little bit, which is normal after rehydrating and eating again. Big picture, lost a total of 20 inches since that baseline. And that's not just progress, that's a whole Calico approved milestone. So, for my weekly overview from Professor Calico, she says this week was a masterclass in resilience disguised as chaos. We began with the Goblin truck incident, 2 days of full system shutdown, 0 workouts, and a skeleton that filed a formal complaint. However, by midweek, the subject rallied. Steps soared past 8K a day for those 3 days. Hydration returned, and the metabolic plot twisted itself into a negative 4.6 pound loss since the last week. Since the week before. The blood pressure and the heart rate stabilized beautifully once the fever fog lifted. My glucose behaved like a well-trained student, except for the honey tea stunt. And sleep stitched itself together in recovery quilt, averaging 7 hours and 19 minutes. Measurements, down 2 inches this week, 20 inches total since the baseline. That's a full ruler's worth of progress. In summary, week 7 was messy, sickly, and scientifically glorious. The data proves that rest counts, hydration heals, and even when the Goblin truck hits, the PAWS still move forward. My final grade, she gave me, is an A- for chaos management, an A+ for persistence. Professor Calico approved. Alright. So, as always, when we end up this thing, we like to talk about what is coming up this week, if I've actually thought of anything. So, let's see here. This week kind of looks like it's going to be a whole adventure this week. It's going to be fun. First of all, because apparently I actually did some work today, this Saturday, my body went, oh, exercise time? Not quite. But I did end up pacing in my living room like a confused Roomba. And honestly, it still counts. Okay? So yes, next week we're going to see that I hit my steps on Saturday. We're going to take those wins when we can. Now Sunday I have a double birthday. Now it's my husband and my cat Kagome. So yay, celebration. Let's be real. I'll probably be here editing this video though because that's just who I am as a person. It's okay. I spent some time with him, but I'll be editing the video. I want to make sure this gets out at least by Monday. So, and of course, speaking of Monday, Monday is Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day, y'all. So we want to give out some huge love and respect to our service members and their families. Thank you for your service, for your sacrifice, and for everything you've given to protect the red, white, and blue. Tuesday, I do have to go back to work. Yay, obligations, adulting, natural enemy of joy. It's okay. And then for the rest of the week, if everything goes right, I am off. Like actually off. Like I can always take time off for my husband's birthday week so we can hang out and do whatever we want. Off. What does that mean for exercise? We're going to find that out together. Yeah, maybe we're going to do some steps. Maybe we're going to take some naps. Maybe I'll have some cake. Who knows? Tune in next Saturday for the results of this scientific experiment. Alright, y'all. So this has been week 7. Somehow we survived the Goblin truck sickness, the naps, the chaos, I swear I'm restarting on Monday, energy, and the general mess that was this week. Still came out with progress. So steps got stepped, measurements got measured, and the scale did its little roller coaster thing but ended up in the right directions. So yeah, not a perfect week, but definitely a real one. And honestly, I'll take a real over perfect any day. So if you're following along on your own journey, remember, progress counts even when it's weird, messy, sick, chaotic, or held together with tea, naps, and questionable decisions. We're still moving. Alright, so from here, as always, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Because if I'm dragging myself up them stairs again next week, you're coming with me. Alright, have a good one, y'all, and we'll see you next week.